Okay, so we are up to the ninth ikar, the ninth principle out of the 13. And this one is on page 186. Ani Maamin be'emuno shalema shazos haTorah lo tehi muchlefes. I am steadfast in my absolute belief that this Torah that we received will never be exchanged for another, nor will there be another Torah from the Creator, blessed is His name. Now, obviously, this follows on from the previous one, because the eighth one was the fact that the Torah that we have nowadays is the same Torah that was given to Moshe Rabbeinu. And this one is the fact that the Torah that we received will never be exchanged for another. So it's clear that this one is sort of ruling out any of the Christian theology or the Muslim theology, which was essentially based upon the fact that the Torah was given and then it was replaced. Okay, I'm not saying that was the reason why the Rambam wrote it like that, although it may well have been, because it was certainly both of those religions were very challenging to the Jewish people. And that may be why there was a need to clarify it. Or alternatively, this is something that needed to be clarified for ourselves as well as in the context of kind of what other religions claim. Let's have a look. In the Rambam's words, he continues, okay, which is the next page. The ninth foundational belief is that of negation, meaning that this Torah we received from Moshe will never be nullified, nor will there be another Torah from Hashem. Furthermore, he adds in, no additions or subtractions will ever be made to the Torah, both the written and the oral Torah, as the Pasuk says, you shall not add to it or subtract from it. Okay? So let's have a look. That's the part that he's going to speak about a little now, about adding or changing to the Torah, adding or taking away. Page 191. Absolute perfection does not change. The ninth Ani Maamin sets forth the absolute immutability of the Torah, meaning the fact that it's not changing. The Torah is not subject to change at any point. Nothing will ever be added to the Torah, nor will the Torah or any fraction of it ever be annulled. No mitzvah or precept can ever be supplanted by a new one. Perfection, by definition, he says, cannot be improved. If something is good, great, or fantastic, but short of the perfect mark, there is room for it to be enhanced. Features that are presently lacking can be added, while hindrances or unnecessary elements can be removed. Once the object achieves perfection, however, it is no longer subject to any improvement. Okay, so really the truth is everything in the physical world has imperfections. There's no such thing as an item or an object which is perfect. There's certainly no such thing as a perfect person. A person who thinks they are perfect is actually deluded, and it's not a healthy place to be because nobody is perfect. So, however, he says that with something which is perfection, which is the Torah that's going to be perfection, then there can't be any more enhancements. Think of a key carefully crafted to work in a specific lock. When the bittings have been cut to precision, the key functions flawlessly. At this point, if you cut away a piece of the key, it will no longer operate properly. Likewise, if you add a bit of metal to the key, it will merely jam in place, the appendage serving as nothing but a detriment, meaning sometimes even when you add things, they will just take away from the thing that you think you are adding to. A perfect state means that any change, whether by addition or subtraction, will be for the worse. The key's perfection is limited to a singular dimension, the ability to effectively operate in a specific lock. This idea, however, on an infinitely greater scale, is true regarding the Torah as well. The Torah is not a random compilation of information, as the expression of Hashem's will, Das Elyon, the Das, the knowledge of the Almighty, and the definitive guide to every aspect of life and the world. It is complete and perfect with nothing left to improve. Take away a part of the Torah and it will be lacking. Add something to it and you've damaged it. In other words, if someone wishes to add a mitzvah of his own volition, his error lies not merely in the presumptuousness of deeming a design of his own intellect to be a mitzvah, but more significantly in his failure to realize that the Torah is perfect and ergo impossible to improve. So again, the mashal that he uses is the key, where the key, when you take something away, obviously it's not going to work, but also equally, when you add something to it, then it's also not going to work. And similarly, therefore, when it comes to the Torah as well. So it's hopefully clear and easier for us to understand that if we take something away, which means that we say, well, I'm not going to keep 613, or more than that specifically, not that just I'm not going to keep them, but I don't accept the validity of all 613 of the mitzvahs, I'm only going to accept the validity of the ones that suit me, or 612 of them, or whatever it is, then in that case, we've clearly taken something away. But not only that, he says, even when we say that we're going to add something to the Torah, then that also is damaging to it. Why is that? Because just like the key, if it's made exactly to shape, it's made in order to fit into the lock, and then you add something to it, you haven't actually added something to it, you've damaged the key, and now it's not going to work anymore. Now, if you think about it, Hashem is our creator. He says to us, this is the guidebook. This is the way that you're going to get the most out of this world, Olam Hazeh, and also Olam Haba, the world to come. And therefore, there are certain things that you need to do and certain things you need to stay away from. Some things are going to be good for yourself and your soul, and some things are going to be bad for yourself, your body and your neshama. If we add on to that, which means that we take an extra mitzvah and we say, well, there aren't 613 mitzvahs, we're going to add one and make it 614, then ultimately that is going to be to our detriment as well. So both ways are a problem. And that's why we have this fascination as Jewish people with getting it right. You know, I don't know whether there's any other religion that goes into such great detail as we do, because it's important to get it right, because something which is made to fit the shape, something which is going to be the key in the lock, as it were, to our life, it's important that it's right. And it's important that we've got the right amount, whether it comes to eating matzah on Pesach or the morrow or something like that. It's important that we've got the right time when it comes to Yom Tov and it comes to Shabbos. It's important that we've got the right words when it comes to davening, because all of these things matter, and all of these things are tailored to the task that they're supposed to be doing. So as soon as we start adding or taking away, either of those things are problematic. Let's continue. Page 192, the second paragraph. We're expressing 2 points here. One is that the Torah is perfect and complete and doesn't leave space for addition or subtraction. The second is that this state of perfection is so absolute that it encapsulates every time period and situation the world will ever experience. There will never be a time or place where one can say that although the Torah held true yesterday, that was based on yesterday's circumstances, whereas in today's reality, things have changed. The truths of the Torah transcend any specific situation and will hold true eternally. So again, that's also part of this, because if it was something which was imperfect, that would mean it was, or limited, it was only written for a specific generation. But as soon as we understand and appreciate that it's something which is perfect, then also by definition, it's something which is eternal. And it's something which is talking to our generation and just as necessary as it were to previous generations. Now, he says, we could stop here and simply say that the reason the Torah is both perfect and eternal is just because that's the way it is. This, however, falls far short of the truth. In reality, Torah is of necessity both perfect and unchangeable, and any other option is an impossibility, meaning it's inherently perfect. Inherently, it's got to be perfect. Now, why is this? He continues, Torah is not a freestanding book or a random collection of halachas, sugyas, and hashkafa. It's a presentation of the very essence of Hashem. In a sense, it is a depiction of his personality. Just as analyzing a person's actions and opinions can yield an understanding of the person himself, when I approach a topic in Torah, I'm coming face to face with a higher reality that helps me understand Hashem himself. Now, this is quite a deep idea, but what it's saying is essentially that the manifestation of Hashem in this world, which means the way that Hashem chooses himself to be revealed in this world, is by the Torah that he gave to us. And if you think about it, that is the only thing that we have received which is directly from Hashem. And what I mean by that is that the creation is also from Hashem, and we can therefore work out things about Hashem, but only by means of inference. So if you like, it's a secondary source, because if you look at the creation, then you can work out from the creation that there is a creator. You can work out that the creator created things for certain reasons and for certain purposes. And you can certainly do that. But the Torah is a primary source, because the Torah is the word of Hashem itself. And therefore it is the only manifestation that we have to understand, as it were, as much as a human being can understand, to understand what makes God tick. To understand the way that God's, if you like, perfect world would run. And that's also an important point, because what the Torah will do for us is it will create a sort of framework which is the ideal world and ideal situation. And that's what the 613 mitzvahs are. And we may spend our whole life attempting to get there, or attempting to live in that world, or striving both as individuals and as a society to get there. But at least the more that we try and the more that we strive, then the closer that we get, and the more we can also appreciate when our world is out of sync with Hashem's world. Coming back from Jerusalem, it's kind of like, it's clear that there is a very different reality there. As a Jewish person, just sort of being in the city of Yerushalayim and davening Shachris, as we did yesterday morning. We woke up at 4:15, went to daven at the Churva Shul, which is in the old city. If any of you have been there, it is absolutely stunning. They sort of recreated. If you've been on any trips with my mother-in-law, you may well have done this. And they recreated it, rebuilt it after the Jordanians destroyed it in 1948. And it was only rebuilt in 2010. And it's absolutely stunning that the fact that they built this shul originally in the 1800s is quite awesome, because even today it's the most beautiful building, and then it must have been, the nicest building in the whole city, as well as the largest. And to stand there with a shul which was packed, it started at 4:53 a.m. and the place was packed, full. It was full. And not only that, it took 2 hours. Davening took 2 hours. That was Rosh Chodesh. So admittedly, there was more to say than on a regular weekday. And we all sang Hallel together, and there was laning, and there was Musaf. But still, it was a different world. Here, where unfortunately most people are not up at that time in the morning, but also the fact that a davening could take 2 hours. And I was just kind of like, you look around at the hundreds of people who are sort of singing wholeheartedly with the Hallel. And it's, I don't know, by that time, 5:30 a.m. or 5:45, and you're steps away from the Kosel. And you think to yourself, when Moshiach comes, it will feel something like this. It's a little taste of what it would feel like. Amazing. I went there during yeshiva, and I don't know if that was the Churva Shul. Could be. And it's a little bit of a taste of what that reality would be like. Now, we live in a very different world. The reality for most of us is not that. And, especially being in England, it's certainly very different from being in Yerushalayim. And even if you do live in Yerushalayim, you have to carry on and you have to live your life and go to work every day and, and that sort of thing. But what we do is we strive for that sort of perfect construct of the world, which is what the Torah gives us. And that construct is the essence of Hashem. That's the manifestation of Hashem. Well, that's what it looks like to have a world which is full of Hashem's presence. And the more that we can understand and the more that we can strive towards that, then the more we have what he considers, what he calls Das Elyon, which means knowledge of God himself. Let's continue. He says, human beings are fickle. Our opinions and values are malleable. Today I like you, tomorrow I don't. Today I like this food, tomorrow I don't. Today I'm energized and excited, tomorrow I'm washed out. The child who is so attached to his candy might find it unappealing when he becomes an adult. The teenager who loved skiing, attacking the most challenging slopes, eventually ages and has no energy or drive to even ride the chairlift. Our moods vary, our roles in life change, and as we mature, our views evolve alongside our changing selves. It's quite normal for a person to have a different opinion on a matter than he had a few years earlier. And if you're dealing with teenagers, then sometimes that can be the difference between one day to the next. Hashem, on the other hand, does not have mood swings. He doesn't become emotional. He doesn't go through phases. In short, he is utterly unchanging. Since the Torah is a direct manifestation of Hashem's values, and Hashem himself never changes, the Torah itself can never change. Entertaining the possibility that even a minute detail of the Torah can change is much the same as entertaining the possibility that your reflection in the mirror will wink even as you stand perfectly still. So therefore, that's what he means by the Torah is inherently perfect and inherently unchanging, because it is the word of Hashem himself, because it's the direct will of Hashem, therefore it's something which cannot change. In truth, the bond between Hashem and the Torah runs far deeper. A mirror is a perfect reflection of the person standing opposite, but the mirror shares no integral connection with that person. Similarly, a diary might provide an accurate and insightful window into a person's experiences, opinions, and personality, but the diary itself is untethered to the writer. While it's true that the Torah is a perfect representation of Hashem's unchanging will, it is far more than a simple write-up. When we received the Torah, the Midrash tells us, Hashem informed us this was a transaction like no other. Typically, after the seller transfers ownership of an item, he vanishes from the scene as he is not bound to the item. Regarding the Torah, Hashem tells the Jewish people, "V'yikhuli," you're actually taking me into your lives. I'm right here communicating with you anytime you connect to the Torah. So as it were, Hashem speaks to us every time we read his Torah. It's not just a diary which was written once upon a time, but is no longer connected to him. And that really sort of, the root of that comes from what we said before, that the Torah is the manifestation of Hashem's presence in this world. So therefore, it's not like that was how he was feeling at a certain time, and therefore he wrote about it, but rather this, as it were, contains him within it. This contains, as much as it's possible to say such a thing, it contains the essence of who and what God is contained within those words, within the pages of the Torah that we learn. And therefore, that's why it's always connected to him, because it's a part of his essence that is given to us. Hashem cloaks himself, so to speak, within the Torah. When a person engages in Torah, he's not merely absorbing information, but rather tapping into a live link through which he actively bonds with Hashem. Not only is he connecting with the words of Hashem, he is meeting Hashem directly and coming face to face with ultimate perfection. We are going to stop there, but very, very appropriate, because we're about to go into Shavuos, and after that sort of in-depth analysis of what the Torah actually is, then hopefully we'll understand a little bit more why there's all the fuss that's made about the giving of the Torah, why it is that Shavuos is something that we cherish as one of our three main festivals. I know it's sometimes not on the map as much as Sukkot and Pesach, unfortunately, but really Shavuos is absolutely key to the Jewish year, and as we saw here, it's a key to being part of the Jewish people. We'll stop there.